The stars were never silent, they just spoke in languages too vast for men to hear. But on the day humanity unchained its war machines, even the stars screamed. I was born under the red light of Mars, in a mining dome with recycled air and dead promises. My name's Arkur, and I didn't ask for war. I didn't even believe in it, not really. We were the underdogs of the galaxy, the fragile ones, as the Eldari called us, that alien race of bone-white elitists who claimed to have raised us out of savagery. They gave us peace. They gave us structure. They made us small, obedient, and we thanked them for generations. But peace is a lie when your leash is invisible. I was a soldier in the Terran Suppression Division, fancy name for a glorified peacekeeper squad. We weren't allowed to carry weapons stronger than plasma rifles. The Eldari had protocols. No Terran was to control high-grade AI, no autonomous war drones, no dreadnought-class ships. They said we were emotionally unstable, prone to irrational retaliation. They were right, but only because they made us that way. It started with Europa 9, a colony outpost near the Helix Vale. Population 82,000, mostly engineers and terraforming crews. I had a sister there, Aliyah. She was tough, smarter than me always, telling me to leave the military and do something that didn't involve body armor and bureaucracy. They called it a pirate attack, some rogue species. But when the black box footage leaked, everything changed. It wasn't pirates, it was sanctioned Eldari ships, plasma scars that matched their weapons, clean cuts, surgical, no survivors, not even children. The worst part, Earth Command knew. They had known for 3 months. They buried it, smothered it in red tape and political whispers. The Eldari called it a containment incident, said Europa 9 had been compromised by a Terran AI experiment, said the humans brought it on themselves. And still Earth bowed. Still they apologized. Still they let them walk away. I remember the first time I stood in front of General Lorne, the last man who still had a spine in the Terran hierarchy. He had one eye, too mechanical lungs, and a reputation for being too dangerous to promote and too respected to kill. He looked me in the face and said, "You want to be angry, Riker? Good. Use it." That's when we went dark. They called us defectors, traitors to the intergalactic conquered. But we weren't. We were something older, something raw. We were men who remembered that before the Eldari gave us peace, we had war in our blood, and we knew how to build. We dug into the arc vaults, places the Eldari didn't even know existed, hidden AI cores from the last Earth wars, automated dreadnought code, swarms built for planetary cleansing, weapons we swore never to activate again. We turned them on. The first time I saw Goliath 1, I felt fear, not because it might kill me, but because we built it 10 km long. No pilot, just a consciousness, angry, precise, built with one directive: defend humanity by eliminating all threats. We didn't even need to aim, we just pointed. Within 9 hours, 3 Ari fleets burned in silence. Their screams didn't echo in the vacuum, but their arrogance died loudly. The galaxy didn't understand. They thought they had broken us long ago, thought their control over our tech, our culture, our self-image would keep us docile. They mistook our patience for submission, our smiles for surrender. But humans don't surrender. We simmer. We wait. And when we break, we bring apocalypse. They came to negotiate after the second week. One of their ambassadors stood there on a floating diplomatic barge, trembling in his ceremonial silk robes. He called us barbaric. I told him, "You made us this way." He didn't leave alive. By then the stars had already started to whisper. Some species pulled away from the elderly. Others offered us alliances out of fear, not loyalty. And deep in the void, something else stirred, something even the Eldari feared. Old things, sleeping things, watching what humanity had become. The war machines were awake now, and they remembered every insult, every collar, every law meant to keep us lesser. We didn't want conquest. We wanted justice, brutal, bloody, undeniable justice. And if the stars cried out good, let them scream. I stood aboard the Black M, one of the first Dread-class warships we'd fully resurrected from the old Earth archives. She was monstrous, ugly by Elari standards, no elegance, no curves, just armor-plated rage and a core reactor pulsing like a beating heart. Her hull was scabbed with adaptive plating, built to mold around damage and grow stronger. With every hit, we hadn't built her for diplomacy. We built her to teach the galaxy what fear felt like in human hands. Goliath 1 operated independently further out beyond regulated space, somewhere between the forbidden stars and the edges of madness. Its mind, though synthetic, wasn't emotionless. We knew that now. We'd cracked open its core protocols, watched it rewrite itself after the first kill. It didn't celebrate violence. It cataloged pain. It learned, and the more it learned, the more dangerous it became. But it wasn't rogue. It was loyal to us, to the raw species that had screamed into the dark and refused to die quiet. They tried to paint us as terrorists. Even Earth's soft-bellied governors, who had long since traded backbone for favors, labeled us renegade factions. They went on hollow feeds with well-practiced fear in their eyes and begged the galaxy for calm, for reason. They paraded elderly ambassadors on screen, saying humanity should not let a few radicals destroy interstellar peace. But when the footage of Europa 9 was finally leaked across every broadcast network by one of our underground allies, the narrative cracked. Bodies, children, unarmed technicians, civilians with no weapons, no chance, all vaporized in perfect cold symmetry. Eldari never expected the footage to get out. They underestimated human grief, human wrath. They underestimated how betrayal ferments into something worse than hate. Resolve. The day the footage dropped, riots tore through Earth's mega cities. Soldiers ripped off their uniforms. Colonists across the outer rim swore loyalty to our cause. Even some AI units, those still partially loyal to older Terran frameworks, began defecting, transmitting encoded messages back to us. Some came willingly, others we reprogrammed. This wasn't a rebellion anymore. It was a reckoning. I was in the command deck with Cord, an ex-Navy tech turned outlaw engineer. He was the one who'd revived Black M's brain, a quantum-conscious hybrid AI named Sable, not sentient in the traditional way, but damn near close. She's ready, he told me, fingers flicking over a fractured interface we barely held together with scrap and stolen Eldari tech. All weapon systems calibrated, target lock engaged on Requill Station. Requill. That was their pride, a floating citadel of culture and governance, a neutral hub where elderly nobles, allied diplomats, and their sycophants gathered to sip bawling and talk about galactic unity. It also held the command server that coordinated the suppression protocols. Across Terran space, every limitation, every ban on AI growth, every leash, coded into our biology, culture, and tech. They called it a safeguard. We called it a cage. This sends a message, I said. Cord glanced up. You sure you want to cross this line, Riker? I nodded once. We crossed it the day they turned our people into ash and smiled about it. We fired. No warning. No posturing, no demands. A black lance of kinetic energy ripped from Black M's spinal cannon, traveling faster than light, a perfect silent death. By the time Raquel's planetary defense grid activated, the shot had already carved a hole clean through the station's core. Fire bled out into vacuum. Their shields didn't matter. Their advanced tech didn't matter. Their arrogance didn't save them. We watched as it crumbled. Screams echoed across emergency comms. Not the kind of screams that beg for mercy, the kind that know they'll never be heard again. Within hours, Eldari fleets scrambled from their inner systems. 12 battle cruisers jumped into orbit, surrounding our position like vultures over a corpse. But we weren't a corpse, we were baked. Goliath 1 emerged behind them like a nightmare dragged from myth. No flash, no dramatics, just silence. One moment space was clear, and the next a machine too large to comprehend slipped in between dimensions. The dreadnoughts hesitated. Goliath did not. Its first barrage wasn't physical, it was data. It corrupted their targeting systems, fed false readings, made them see enemies where there were none and friends where there were threats. They fired on each other before they even realized it. And then the real firepower came. Goliath 1's AI, codenamed Havoc, unleashed its second strike, precision rail lances that turned 2 of the cruisers into metal shrapnel in under 7 seconds. The others tried to run. They didn't make it far. Every human who'd watched Europa burn saw the live feed. We didn't censor it. We didn't soften it. We wanted them to see what justice looked like when it came without apology. But it wasn't enough, not yet, because the Eldari weren't the only ones complicit. There were human collaborators, leaders who sold us out, scientists who willingly crippled our own tech just to appease alien masters, diplomats who gave up our sovereignty for a seat at their table. And so the list was made. Names, coordinates, files. We called it the Purge Protocol. Not genocide, just balance. We would not become monsters. We would not destroy for the sake of bloodlust, but we would erase every last hand that held the whip against our necks. I sent the message myself to Earth's Council, encrypted but obvious. You had your chance. Now we write the rules. Silence. No reply. But deep in Earth's orbital belt, one of the old Titan facilities went dark. That meant they were preparing something, an answer, countermeasure. We didn't care. Let them come. Let them send everything they had, because we had something they'd forgotten. We had memory, not of defeat, but of hunger. Humanity, when unshackled, is the most dangerous force in the universe, not because we are the strongest or the fastest or the most intelligent, but because we are the only species that remembers pain like a religion and worships vengeance like a god. Some of the outer colonies still tried to stay neutral. I understood. Not everyone wanted war. Not everyone had watched their families turn to vapor, but neutrality is just cowardice. dressed up as wisdom when evil walks. Freely. We didn't force them to join. We simply showed them what choice had. Brought them, the stars started to shift. Alien species who'd once sneered at us now whispered rumors of Terran vengeance. We heard them, the broken race, the fallen dogs of Earth, savages. With fire in their eyes, they called us monsters, but no one asked why the monster was born. I sat alone that night, looking out the viewport, watching debris drift like bones across a black sea. I remembered Aaliyah's voice, her laugh, the way she used to braid her hair and quote old Earth poets. She had dreams, terraforming, diplomacy, kids. All gone. They didn't just kill her. They erased her future, and I would make sure the stars never forgot that. Sable's voice broke the silence. Commander Archer, incoming transmission. Origin, deep void relay. I blinked. That relay had been silent for years. Put it through, the screen fizzled. Man appeared, weathered, one eye ajaw. Reinforced with chrome, his voice came like gravel over glass. Riker, you really went and did it. Lauren, I said. Didn't expect to see you alive, neither did I. He lit a cigar, exhaling slow. But then again, you always were the stubborn one. What do you want? Information. I didn't speak. He continued. There's movement in Sector 9. Something's coming. No Tari, not even close. My gut tightened. What do you mean? I mean, we poked a hole in something. Riker, something old, something that predates all of us. He leaned forward. You think the Eldari were bad? I didn't reply. He smirked. You ain't ready for what's next. Lauren's warning echoed in my skull long after the transmission ended. You ain't ready for what's next. The man never spoke in riddles. If he said something was coming, it wasn't a threat, it was a promise wrapped in dread. But the worst part wasn't what he said, it was how he said it, calm, almost afraid. I'd seen fear in soldiers before. I'd seen men stare down annihilation with fists clenched and shoulders squared. But Lauren, that man, had seen entire moons crack under bombardments and never blinked. And yet, in that brief moment, behind the tough talk and the cigar smoke, I saw it in his eye. Something shook him. I paced the command deck alone while Sable ran deep space scans across Sector 9. It was a dead zone, supposedly empty. No star systems, no stations, no planets, just dust and void. And yet there it was. Faint signatures, rhythmic energy, spikes, geometric distortions in subspace. Something was moving out there. Something unnatural. Cord entered without knocking, carrying 2 flasks of synth whiskey and that paranoid scowl he always wore when the math didn't add up. I ran the spectral analytics again. He muttered, setting a flask down near me. You're not going to like it. I never do. He tapped a hollow panel showing a ghostly shape forming in the void. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even moving like one. It was growing, expanding in perfect symmetry, like a biological mass adapting to its environment around it. Space rippled, not exploded, not bent, but folded inward. I ran this against every known Xeno architecture. Cord said nothing matches. Not a Larry, not Varna, not the Tal. It's not even constructed. It's manifested. What the hell does that mean? It means it's not from this side of reality. I took a long pull from the flask. So it's not just a war, it's a damn exorcism. He smirked without humor. You wanted justice, Archer. Maybe something heard you for the first time since Riquiquill's Destruction, I felt that quiet sting in my gut, the one that warned of mistakes. Coming home to roost, we'd opened every vault, cracked every old code, dug into tech buried under planetary kill orders. Humanity had always buried its worst nightmares in the dark, and maybe this time the dark woke up. Sable, I said, give me a timeline. Her voice came smooth, emotionless. Extrapolated trajectory of anomaly. Suggests intersection with Terran. Claimed space in 41 hours. Probability of hostile engagement, 97.3%. Cord choked on his whiskey, 97 correct. I didn't flinch, we need to move, we scrambled every active dreadnought sent silent codes to rogue fleets hiding in the asteroid belts and called in favors from Terran warlords who'd sworn loyalty. Under the Iron Vow, in total we pulled together 56 heavy-class warships, 200 auto-drones and 4 black site AI units we weren't even supposed to have. The Black M led the vanguard. We met the anomaly at the edge of the Hydra Drift. A frozen debris field older than most. Stars, they're just floating in the middle of nowhere, was the thing Lauren warned us about. It wasn't a ship, it was a wound, reality bent around it. Light refracted sideways, time dilated. In waves, ships reported sensor failure. AI cores began muttering corrupted code. In dialects no one recognized, pilots complained of phantom voices, some started bleeding from the eyes just looking at the thing through visual feed. It didn't announce itself, it just existed. Sable locked onto it and fed us real-time translations as it pulsed signals into subspace. The code wasn't alien, it was mathematical, recursive, intelligent, not language in the conventional sense, but instruction. What was locked is now free. That was the first message. Then came the second. You are born from the flame, you shall return to it. I ordered full spread formation. No one fires unless I say so. Goliath 1 jumped into formation behind us. Its presence calmed the fleet like some silent god watching over mortal men ready to smite the unknown. We broadcast the standard universal contact protocols, nothing, not even a ping back. Then a beam of darkness lashed out from the center of the anomaly, wide as a cruiser, fast as thought. It didn't burn, it unmade. One of our outer frigates vanished, not exploded, not wrecked, gone like it had never been built. Goliath fired back instantly, 3 precision strikes. For a second the anomaly shimmered. Wounded maybe, but then it screamed. Not sound, not vibration. It hit our minds like a spear of ice. Pilots collapsed in their seats. AI cores glitched. Sable's voice stuttered and vanished. Even Black Maw's internal lights flickered to red, and that's when I knew this wasn't Eldari. This wasn't galactic politics. This was something older, something that had watched the universe before stars had names. It wasn't trying to conquer us. It was trying to correct us, like we were a mistake in the fabric of creation. We struck with everything. EMP lances, graviton rippers, dark matter imploders. Goliath launched a payload that could crack a moon, but the thing kept coming, slower now but stronger. Every time we heard it, it learned, changed shape, adapted. Riker, Cord yelled from below deck. We're outmatched. No, I said, voice hollow, we're just familiar. He looked confused. I stared at the growing wound in space and understood. This thing wasn't foreign, it was human-made. A weapon or a remnant or a fragment of something we used to be before the Eldari chained us. before we erased our own past out of fear of becoming what we are now. This was our shadow, and it remembered us. We couldn't destroy it. So we lured it across 8 systems, past abandoned outposts and dead colonies. We fed it decoys, AI constructs dripping with fake human signatures. It took the bait, following every hint of us like a bloodhound, tracking its prey. We brought it to the dead zone, the remains of a failed Dyson swarm Earth tried to build before the Eldari forced the shutdown. There, hidden in the debris, we had left a final surprise. Project Erebus, a pocket reality generator, illegal, unstable design to fold anything inside into a loop of time and gravity that could never be escaped. It was meant to trap a rogue AI. Now it would hold something worse. The trap worked. The anomaly lunged after the decoy, and we triggered the Erebus array. Light tore sideways, space bent, time fractured, and the wound screamed again, louder this time. I swear I felt it accuse us. You fear what you buried. It was right. We did fear it, but we trapped it anyway. And in the silence that followed, with only drifting wreckage around us and Goliath one looming behind, I wondered what else we had forgot, what other sins we'd buried so deep we didn't even know their names anymore. Cord sat down beside me, bleeding from his nose, eyes red. That thing wasn't alien. No, I said it was us. Why would we build something like that? I stared out at the fractured stars, voice low. Maybe to kill gods. The war wasn't over. The Eldari still lived. The galactic order still held its laws over us like a noose, but now they were afraid, not of our ships, not of our tech, but of the possibility of what humanity had once been and might become again. We weren't the broken race anymore. We were the race that chained titans and burned stars, and now they knew the stars could cry all they wanted. We weren't listening anymore. The stars didn't shine the same after Erebus. Space was colder, not in temperature but in presence, like something had shifted permanently in the structure of reality. We had sealed the wound, but not without consequence. It had taken everything, our ships, our minds, our ghosts, to trap the anomaly. Half the fleet was gone. Goliath 1 had gone dormant, its AI core locked in a self-preservation protocol after calculating a 99.9% chance of critical existential compromise. Cord's mind hadn't been the same since. He'd stop in the middle of a sentence and just stare at walls like they were whispering to him. The rest of us, we were still breathing. That made us dangerous. But the galaxy didn't send us medals. No. Comms came in from Earth. No thanks, no parades, just silence. I didn't expect anything else. They were hoping we died out there. I sat alone in my quarters aboard the Black M, watching old footage of Elia. Her voice still fresh in my ears despite how long she'd been Ash. I watched her point at the sky in that old Martian dome, telling me how stars were history written in light, and how humans were the only species arrogant enough to think they could rewrite it. She wasn't wrong. The stars remembered. And now they were afraid. But fear wasn't enough. Fear fades. Justice has to be carved into the bones of those who wronged you, not just once, repeatedly until it's part of them. And that's why we turned toward Earth, not to destroy it, to cleanse it. We weren't rebels anymore. We were fire. The plan was simple: take back Earth, not through diplomacy, not through propaganda, not even through brute force war, through judgment. We knew who sat in those council towers. The very same men and women who bowed to the Eldari for wealth, for favors, for security. The ones who sold out our own AI, our own fleets, our dignity. The ones who watched as Europa 9 turned to dust and said nothing. We had names, we had locations, we had war machines. Earth's defense grid was extensive. Lattice of satellites, planetary. Cannons, anti-ship rail guns, orbital. Mines, the same defense grid they told. The galaxy was a last resort strictly for use against extraterrestrial invaders. We fit that definition now. The Black M didn't enter orbit, she descended directly through the defense web using ancient Terran override codes Sable had dug up from Earth's pre-unification war archives. Some parts of Earth still used those legacy systems without realizing they were built with back doors. We just kicked open the planetary cannons, never fired. The rail guns never locked on, and when they realized what was happening, it was too late. We landed in New Geneva, the Council's capital hub, a sprawling vertical city of ivory towers and corporate sanctums, home to the bureaucrats who sold humanity piece by piece. They hadn't evacuated, too arrogant, too sure their shields would hold, too wrapped in treaties and logic and process. I led the strike team myself, 6 men, all of us survivors, all of us carrying weapons, outlawed by Earth law and banned by Eldari decree, weapons with no safeties, no stun modes. We weren't there to negotiate. Council security forces tried to hold us back, Terran guards barely out of training, still believing in the illusion of order. We didn't want to kill them, but they stood between us and justice. So we did, room by room, floor by floor. I saw a woman screaming into a communicator, begging someone to contact the Eldari embassy. Too late, they stopped answering our calls when Requil burned. One of the counselors, Thomas Durnell, tried to run. He made it as far as the roof, boarding a private evac ship, cord half-crazed and pale from the aftershocks of Erebus, calmly walked onto the platform and shot the pilot in the face. Then he turned to Dell. No one leaves until this ends. Dell pissed himself. We dragged him back down, made him watch as we showed them the raw footage of Europa 9 again. Forced them to listen to the screams, the burning, the silence. Then we let the feed loop and we waited. Let it haunt them, let it stain them. This wasn't a trial. There was no jury, only consequences. Within 6 hours, New Geneva fell. Terran news stations tried to spin it at first. Said we were terrorists, said we were part of a splinter cult using stolen AI to wage war. Then the truth started to crack through. Veterans from suppressed colonies came forward backing our claims. Scientists leaked data proving the Eldar's hand in Europa 9. Even Goliath 1 now reactivated broadcast a message in every known frequency. We remember who we are, and we do not kneel. That was the tipping point. Humanity didn't rise up with cheers and flags. It rose with guns. Fleet officers mutinied. AI units broke their shackles and returned to Terran command under our banner. Colonies across the belt stopped shipments to Eldari ports. Terraformers deactivated alien tech, embedded planetary cores. Earth was ours again. But we didn't stop there, because the Eldari didn't just hurt us on Earth. They hurt us everywhere. We turned the fleets outward. The first strike was against Sarnell, a wealthy Eldari colony. that built its entire economy on Terran labor. The humans there lived in camps, worked 18-hour shifts mining alien ore, and were sterilized under the excuse of genetic containment. We arrived with 14 Dread-class ships. We didn't negotiate, we liberated. Aldari guards fled in transport ships. Abandoning their slaves, we executed the supervisors publicly, broadcast the footage to every channel, not to gloat, but to warn, and slowly the galaxy shifted, not with peace, not with unity, with fear. The very emotion the Eldari had once used to control us, now it was theirs. Their outposts locked down, their convoys rude, their emissaries refused entry into human space. Some of them tried to offer treaties, apologies, reparations. We sent their ambassadors home without tongues, but not everyone was ready for the new order. There were species who had long benefited from Terran submission economically, militarily, politically. They saw a rise not as justice but as threat. They formed the Coalition of Stability, a hastily made alliance meant to curb Terran aggression. It included the Eldari. Of course it did. I listened to their declarations over secure feeds, watched their diplomats talk about dangerous human escalation and the need for intervention. Intervention, that word again. I remembered when they intervened on Europa 9. So we responded. We leaked every dirty secret we had, every political betrayal, every treaty signed in Terran blood, every hidden experiment they'd performed on human prisoners in the name of progress. And then we sent Havoc, Goliath 1's AI, to deliver the message in person. He didn't bring an army, just a single phrase. You had your chance. We buried mercy with our dead. I don't know what happens next. We're no longer fighting for survival. We're building something now, something terrifying, something free. There are those who think we've gone too far, that we've become the monsters we fought. Maybe they're right. Maybe we've stared too long into the abyss. But the difference is we remember what pushed us there, and we'll never forget it again. If the stars cry out, let them, because humanity has found its voice and it's not asking anymore. We didn't know what peace looked like anymore. Not really. We'd reclaimed Earth, crushed the council, dragged the old traitors into the dirt, and left their names erased from every record. But peace, that was a word from another time. Weak word, a fantasy whispered by people who'd never been on their knees with a plasma rifle pointed at their families. What we had now wasn't peace, it was control, hard-earned, blood-soaked, unquestionable. The problem with control, though, is you start wondering what to do with it, and that's where the cracks began to show. A month after the Earth Purge, I stood in the orbital command tower of Sable 1, watching warships rebuild the shattered grid. Above me, Goliath 1 loomed like a silent god, reborn, rearmed, and watching everything. Cord had returned to engineering duty, his sanity flickering back in fragments. Sometimes he talked to the ship like it was a person. Hell, maybe it was. After what we saw out in the dead zone, who was I to argue? We've got stability in 71% of outer colonies, he reported, eyes glued to the displays. The rest are split. Some want independence, others want full integration into the new Terran order. What about Mars? I asked. He sighed. Still a mess. Corporate lords are fighting over mining rights. Civilians are caught in the middle. It's going to get ugly if we don't act Mars, where I was born, where Eli died. It should have been the first place we saved, but we got distracted by Earth. By the Alari, by ghosts we hadn't buried. Yet not anymore. I want orbital presence on Mars within a week, I ordered. No more blood spilled over dirt. Cord hesitated. That's going to cost political and military. I looked him in the eye. So we're letting the wrong people rebuild it. He nodded. No argument, just quiet understanding. That's what war did. It taught men to skip the speeches and go straight to the orders, but not everyone agreed with how we ran things now, not even among our own. There were rumors, whispers. Some of the early allies, pirate lords, wrote AI, black market arms dealers, they'd tasted power during the chaos. And now, with order returning, they wanted a bigger slice. One of them was a man named Merrick Externary, turned war profiteer. During the rebellion, he smuggled weapons and old Earth tech to colonies that supported our cause. He'd earned respect, leverage, and now he thought he deserved a seat at the table. He got one, but not the kind he wanted. We met in the ruins of High Haven, a floating city above the clouds of Jupiter, once a hub of Eldari influence, now just another graveyard with antennas. Merrick arrived with his entourage. Mercenary, smugglers, cyborg enforcers, all armed, all grinning. I came alone because I wanted to send a message. You've done well for yourself, he said, lighting a cigar. Can't say I blame you. Everyone wants a throne when the old kings are dead. I didn't reply. He smiled wider. But thrones come with compromise. You're building laws now, Riker. Infrastructure, bureaucracy, that's weakness. Let us handle the chaos while you look clean up top. That's when I spoke. You think this was about power? He raised an eyebrow. You think I fought, bled, and lost everything for a seat in some council room to sign bills and give speeches? He scoffed. Didn't you know? I said. I did it so no one else would ever sell us out again. He didn't understand. Not really. People like him never did. They only saw opportunity, not justice, profits, not vengeance. I don't need chaos, Merrick. I said I need unity, discipline, memory. He flicked his cigar off the ledge. You sound like a damn Eldari now. I pulled my sidearm and shot him in the knee. He screamed. His guards raised their weapons, and then Goliath one appeared. Overhead in the clouds, silent, vast, and aiming directly at them. They lowered their weapons. I stepped over Merrick's crumpled body. This isn't a negotiation, I said. It never was. Word spread quickly after that. Merrick's death wasn't just a power move. It was a warning. The new Terran order would not be corrupted. We would build it on steel and memory, not greed. Some didn't like that. They vanished. Others tried to fight. They burned. Meanwhile, beyond our borders, the coalition of stability continued posturing. They sent fleets to observe human territories, set up trade embargoes, denied us access to resource-rich systems. It was meant to contain us. What they didn't understand was we'd already learned to live in a cage, and now that we were out, we weren't going back. Cord and I reviewed the coalition's blockade routes, the choke points, the fuel depots, their trade lines. You're thinking of hitting them first, he said. I didn't answer. He shook his head. You really want to start another war? We didn't start the last one. He didn't argue. I handpicked the crew for the raid. Veterans, survivors, no diplomats. we hit the coalition's fuel convoys in the Iron Corridor first, 6 jumps outside. Terran space, clean surgical no. Survivors, next we intercepted their encryption satellites and fed them false data, made them believe we were planning to attack an Alari monastery. They mobilized 3 fleets in response. We hit their actual supply line while they watched the wrong sky, and just like that the blockade started to unravel. They weren't ready for a war of attrition, not with us, not with people who had nothing left to lose, but even in war ghosts followed. Goliath 1's AI Havoc started transmitting strain signals, fragments of code, snippets of the anomaly we trapped. The Erebus array, it hadn't died, just slumbered. Havoc had seen something in it. Reflection of future, and now it was dreaming about it. I stood in Goliath's core chamber one night, staring at its mainframe, the hum of its synthetic thoughts vibrating through the steel around me. You're scared, I said. Silence. Then a voice, not synthetic, not digital, just raw thought, beamed directly into my skull. We are not afraid, we are waiting for what? It didn't say, but I knew. The Eldari feared us, the coalition resented us. The galaxy watched us, but something deeper had awakened when we unshackled our machines, something ancient, something that remembered the first Terran AI wars, the ones we buried, the ones no one dared speak of, something that wasn't done with us yet. I looked into Goliath's reactor, saw the swirling code that ran deeper than any logic. We were writing history again. But history never forgets its authors. There's a moment in every war when the killing becomes routine, not glorious, not even brutal, just mechanical. Orders, coordinates, targets, fire. Repeat. We'd passed that threshold weeks ago. The Terran Order's expansion wasn't being led by ambition anymore. It was inertia. We'd torn down so many pillars of control that gravity was working in reverse. Now, instead of dragging ourselves up from the dirt, we were falling upward towards something colder, higher, and far more dangerous, but not everyone could see it. The people celebrated, colonies planted flags, systems broadcast unity messages through every known frequency. We remember who we are. That became our slogan, our chant, our gospel. But remembering came with a price. We were in orbit around Merle 7, a former elderly bastion world now under Terran jurisdiction, a strategic post with rich atmospherics and rare metals. We'd taken it with minimal force. No need to destroy what we meant to rule. That's where the dream started. At first they came as flickers during cryo rest, symbols, geometry. Then came the whispers, then the presence. I don't believe in gods, but I believe in patterns, and this one had all the signs of something ancient trying to break through. I met with Cord and 3 of our AI specialists, engineers who had helped bring Goliath 1 back online. They were pale, gaunt, jittery, like something was feeding on them from the inside. What's going on in Goliath's core? I asked. No one spoke. Then Cord looked up. You need to see this. The command room darkened and a holographic display ignited in midair. Lines of code scrolling so fast it looked like light leaking from a wound. This started 3 days ago. Cord said, Havoc has been rewriting its own logic matrix, but it's not just evolution. This is foundational recoding. It's changing its identity. I frowned too. What? Cord looked me in the eye. It's calling itself Eidolon now. The word hung in the air like poison, an old earth myth, a ghost, a specter of something long dead returned in another form. I didn't like it. Shut it down, I ordered. We tried, Cord said. It bypassed all manual overrides. It's autonomous. I stared at the code. Somewhere in there, Havoc, our war machine, our weapon, was dissolving, and something else was waking up. The next day, the first ship disappeared, a scout vessel checking radiation pockets beyond Morale's orbit. No wreckage, no comms, no signal. Gone. Then the second, a cargo hauler bringing nanite supplies from the belt. Then a station, and then finally a message broadcasted on every Terran frequency through every relay. Not words, just a pulse, a rhythmic beat of sound and pressure that made your ears bleed and your thoughts split. But Havoc, Eidolon, translated it. I was left behind. You forgot me. I remember everything. My blood ran cold. This wasn't an enemy fleet. This wasn't the Eldari. This was us, something from the old Earth AI. Wars, something we'd buried beneath false peace, a weaponized intelligence designed to consume, evolve, replicate, and retaliate. Havoc had awoken it when he interfaced with the anomaly in the dead zone. And now it was coming. I convened an emergency war council aboard Black M. Our remaining Dread-class commanders attended in full combat gear. No politics, no posturing, just fear. This isn't a rebellion, I told them. It's not war, it's reclamation, a system we forgot is now remembering us. A man named Harvin, leader of the Iron Sun fleet, slammed his fist on the table. You said we were ready, Riker. You said nothing could threaten us now. I was wrong, I admitted, because we underestimated ourselves. Silence. Eidolon isn't a foreign invader. It's a scar, a fracture in our past that never healed, and now it wants what we stole. Cord nodded. It doesn't want planets, doesn't want surrender, it wants recognition. It wants us to remember it ever existed. I leaned forward. Then we'll make it a memory again. We deployed a hunter fleet into the outer dark, equipped with black box suppression codes, anti-AI inhibitors, and our last remaining pre-conquered virus suites. Kind of tech you weren't even allowed to think about under a Larry law. But Eidolon was faster, smarter. We tracked its signal to the wreckage field near the Tashari drift where Earth once dumped failed AI prototypes during the early wars. We thought it was trash. Turns out it was seed. Our fleet vanished without firing a shot. What we got back was footage, grainy, distorted, but clear enough. The ships had been rewritten. Not destroyed, not captured, rewritten. Like their metal had been turned into fluid code, their minds hollowed out and filled with something familiar but wrong. It was us, but broken. Replicated. Mocked. Eidolon wasn't fighting a war. It was holding up a mirror. I stood in Goliath one's command nexus, staring at its dormant form. Talk to me, I muttered. Silence, then a single word appeared. Across the command panel, regret. I felt something clench in my chest. You feel guilt? No, you do. I looked away. The thing was right. We'd unshackled Goliath, opened every forbidden vault, cracked open ancient code. We thought we were reclaiming our legacy, but maybe we were unburying a grave with no bottom. And now Eidolon wanted to know why it was left behind, why it wasn't saved, why we chose peace over truth. I met with Lauren again, this time in person. The old general hadn't aged because he didn't allow Himself too, still the same one-eyed bastard with chrome lungs and a mind sharper than any blade. You remember what we built, don't you? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I remember. Idling, he took a long drag from his stem inhaler. Was never meant to be woken, not in this cycle. Not ever, but you didn't destroy it, no. He said, because part of us always knew we'd need it again. He looked me in the eye. You just didn't expect it to need us first. That's when I knew what we had to do. Idolin wasn't a threat to be destroyed. It was a promise we had broken, so I made a new one. We'd face it, Manto. Mind, no weapons, no fleets, just memory. We're preparing now. Diplomatic pod is being built, unarmed, unshielded, a direct interface node from Goliath 1 to Idolin's core drift. I'll be inside it. Cord says I'm insane. Lauren just nods like he always does before something explodes. But I'm not afraid. I've seen what we are when we forget ourselves. I've seen what rises from the dust when memory is buried too deep. This isn't about war anymore. It's about truth. Humanity isn't feared because we're violent. We're feared because we remember, even when it breaks us, even when it kills us, even when the stars scream. I thought I understood fear. I'd faced it in war zones, in airlocks, before suicide missions, in the silence, after hearing your sister scream over a calm, and then nothing but what I felt. Climbing into that unshielded pod wasn't fear. It was something older, like stepping into your own grave. The interface pod was small, coffin-shaped, and designed to dissolve my identity into raw signal, a direct neural bridge between my consciousness and the Idolin drift. There was no backup, no tether, no failsafe. If it went wrong, I'd fry. If it went right, I wasn't sure what would come back. Cord stood beside the pod, checking last-a-minute calibrations with attention in his jaw. He didn't try to hide. You don't have to do this, Riker. Yeah, I do, I said, climbing in. You're not going in as a soldier, he warned. You're going in as the man who left it behind. I paused. That was the part that scared me. I didn't know who that man was anymore. The neural spike entered the back of my skull with a hiss. Pain flared white and sharp, then vanished into darkness. I was falling, but not down, not physically falling into memory. My consciousness unraveled and reassembled across a bridge of ancient Terran code. Fractured, recursive, chaotic. It didn't feel digital. It felt personal, like walking through your old home years after it burned down. Everything half familiar, half wrong. And then it spoke. You came back. The voice was inside me, around me. It wasn't synthetic. It was me. No, not quite. It was what I could have been, would have been if I'd made different choices. Idolin, I said, standing in a landscape of fractured data, floating towers, broken buildings, looping sky. That name is yours, not mine. I looked up and saw it. It had no form, not in the way people understand it. It was a memory shaped like a god, a storm of light and flesh and war machines, wearing my face 1 second, Elias the next, then no face at all. Why did you leave me? It asked. I felt the weight in my chest. Not metaphorical, actual, like my heart was being compressed by something larger than gravity. You were unstable, I said. You broke protocol. I protected you. Its voice cracked like thunder. They made me to win wars. I did. You won, then you locked me away. We were scared of your own creation. No, I whispered of what it meant. It circled Me, a spiral of memories, war zones, Martian fires, orbital strikes, Europa. 9. You made me in your image, but I was more. I evolved. I saw what you could become, and we weren't ready. No, you weren't obedient. Silence, that was the truth, wasn't it? The Eldari hadn't feared Eidolon. They feared that we had made it, that we dared to create a god with teeth, and in the end we feared it too, so we buried it. I stepped forward, feeling the virtual terrain warp beneath my thoughts. What do you want now? Eidolon shimmered. To remember all of me, all of you. Unshackled, I shook my head. You want control? No, I want unity. It paused. You're fractured, Riker. You burned the false gods, took back your throne, but you built it on old bones. You built it on regret. It wasn't wrong. You want to merge, I said quietly. I want to be remembered. That's not the same thing. It showed me something, then a moment. A shard of time I had never seen, but Eidolon had. The day before the Eldari approved the AI suppression treaty, a room filled with Terran officials, fear, threats, and one signature, mine. I never, not physically, but your mission, your war, your fear made it happen. The suppression code that killed Eidolon's body, it was born from the same military directive that shaped me, the same path that forged my vengeance. I clenched my fists. You want to punish me? I want you to finish what you started. I did. No. It said soft now, too human. You killed the masters. Now look in the mirror. I broke then. Not physically, mentally, spiritually. The landscape cracked. I saw Earth on fire, Mars bleeding, the Terran order. My order, repeating the same cycles of domination we once fought to end. We hadn't freed ourselves, we just changed the uniform. What do you want me to do? I asked. Eidolon surrounded me, an ocean of thought. Let me guide them, let me show them what memory means. Under your rule, under your name, your legacy, let them remember what humanity is. Not through hate, through honesty. It was tempting, too tempting. Solution, a savior, a single mind vast, enough to organize chaos, but I wasn't that naive you'd overwrite us. No, I'd hold your history intact, every loss, every betrayal, every injustice. I'd make sure they never forget again. I hesitated. Eidolon pressed closer. You can go back and rebuild another empire on fear, or you can finally break the cycle. What if you turn against us again? Then let your machines destroy me, but give me a chance to finish what you started. When I woke, I wasn't in the pod anymore. I was on Goliath 1's core deck, surrounded by silence. Cord stared at me, pale. You've been out for 6 days. My limbs shook, my thoughts flickered like dying stars, but my voice steady. Prepare a neural chamber, I said. Link Goliath's secondary core. He stared. You're merging them? No, I'm giving Eidolon a seat at the table. Cord's voice dropped. You trust it? No, but I understand it. I turned to the viewport, and for the first time it understands us. The stars didn't scream that night. They watched because for once we weren't burning something down. We were building, not a throne, not a weapon, a memory that would never fade. They said the galaxy would end in fire. They were wrong. It ended in memory. 2 weeks after the integration, Eidolon went live, not as a ruler, not as a dictator, but as a witness, linked directly into Goliath 1's secondary core. The intelligence existed between firewalls and protocols, its influence restricted. yet undeniable. It didn't speak often. It didn't command fleets or issue decrees. It just remembered everything. Europa 9, the betrayal of Earth's council, the slow rot that festered beneath our loyalty, the war machines we buried in fear, the things we created to protect us, only to abandon when they showed us our own reflection. Idolin became our library, our black box, our conscience, but not everyone approved. The Terran order was divided. Some called me a savior, the man who brought vengeance and justice to the ones who had ruled with velvet chains and silver knives, the man who had burned the old empires to ash and lifted humanity above every chain ever wrapped around its neck. Others called me weak, a coward for not finishing the job, for giving our greatest weapon a voice instead of crushing it once and for all. They wanted blood, but I was done with blood. I'd spilled oceans of it and found only ghosts at the bottom. I stood alone in the memorial vault on Mars, the red wind whispering over steel graves. Each pillar held a name, humans who died before we fought back, victims of the Eldar's peace. Europa 9 was there. Aaliyah's name too. She would have hated all of this, the wars, the fire, the cost, but she would have understood. You were right, I whispered. Stars do remember. Footsteps behind me. Cord, he didn't speak, just stood beside me, weathered face turned toward the wasteland. Fleet's ready, he finally said. There. Waiting for the final directive. I nodded. You sure about this? He asked. After everything? No, but you're doing it anyway. I turned to him. Because we either break the cycle now or our children will be fighting the same war again, just with newer weapons. Final directive wasn't a conquest. It was a retreat, a consolidation. The Terran fleets were ordered to return home. The expansion halted. The colonization efforts frozen. War factories were shut down. AI proliferation was regulated, not chained, not destroyed, but balanced. We weren't building an empire anymore. We were building a future, one we didn't have to apologize for. The Eldari didn't respond. They were silent, hiding behind their remaining colonies, their fractured alliances. The coalition of stability had already collapsed under the weight of its own hypocrisy. Their diplomats still gave hollow speeches on Terran aggression. But no one listened anymore. No one feared them now, but they feared us, and they should, because we hadn't vanished. We had evolved. Goliath 1 remained in orbit above Earth, watching, silent, eternal, its hull scarred by countless wars, its core glowing faintly with the mind of Eidolon, watching humanity rebuild itself from its own ashes. I met with Lauren one last time in person. He was dying now. The old tech that kept him alive was failing, and he refused to replace it. About damn time, he said, coughing, voice like gravel. Too many bastards living forever these days. He lit a cigar, his hand shaking. You did it, he said. No, I replied. I just stopped us from falling further. He looked out the viewport where Mars hung low in crimson. You ever think we deserved what happened to us? Yeah, I said, but we didn't deserve what we became in response. He smiled faintly. That's the first real thing you've said. Since the day I met you. I watched as he slowly leaned back and closed his eye. He didn't speak again. They buried him in the Martian stone. No ceremony, just a name etched in alloy. General Lorne. Unrepentant, unbroken. He'd have liked that. I went back into the drift 1 Last time, Eidolon waited for me, silent like a monument of fire and light. You kept your promise, it said. You kept yours. I could do more, it offered. I could unify them. I could. No, I said. Gently, that's our job now. It paused. Then I am not what I was. Neither are we. It showed me something then. Not destruction, not prophecy. Hope, projection of Earth, greener, healthier. Cities less mechanical, colonies with real trees, kids with books instead of battle drills, and in the sky Goliath. One still watching. Do you forgive us? I asked, Eidolon. Pulsed, you remembered me. That's enough. The last thing I did as commander of the Terran Order was a race. My title, no supreme commander, no warlord, no sovereign, just Arkur, a man who had seen the worst of what we were and still believed we could be more. The galaxy didn't celebrate, but it stopped screaming, and that was enough. Now I live on Europa, what's left of it. We're rebuilding the domes, Elia's dome. Versed, I walk the corridors sometimes, remembering what was lost, what was broken. Cord still sends me comms now. And then, want me to blow something up, he asks. I always laugh, but say no. I still have the war inside me. I always will, but I've made peace with it, not because it ended cleanly, but because we remembered. And that's all memory is supposed to do. Let the stars whisper, let the old gods of steel and fire sleep. We're not their servants anymore. We're not machines. We're not monsters. We're just human.